Nelson Mandela was not only a civil rights activist in South Africa, he was also one of the most influential black men of all time. He was a very inspirational individual. He led the anti-apartheid movement and was one of the most loved leaders of the 20th century. He was an ambitious individual and powerful speaker who led riots that were heard around the world. Mandela was instrumental in fighting apartheid and significantly advancing black rights across the globe.
Africans want to be paid a living wage. Africans want to perform work which they are capable of doing, and not work which the government declares them to be capable of. We want to be allowed to live where we obtain work, and not be endorsed out of an area because we were not born there. We want to be allowed and not to be obliged to live in rented houses which we can never call our own. We want to be part of the general population and not confined to living in our ghettos. African men want to have their wives and children to live with them where they work, and not to be forced into an unnatural existence in men's hostels. Our women want to be with their men folk and not to be left permanently widowed in the reserve. We want to be allowed out after 11 o'clock at night and not to be confined to our rooms like little children. We want to be allowed to travel in our own country and to seek work where we want to, and not where the Labor Bureau tells us to. We want a just share in the whole of South Africa. We want security and a stake in society. Above all, my Lord, we want equal political rights, because without them, our disabilities will be permanent. I know this sounds revolutionary to the white in this country, because the majority of voters will be Africans. This makes the white man fear democracy. But this fear cannot be allowed to stand in the way of the only solution which will guarantee racial harmony and freedom for all. It is not true that the enfranchisement of all will result in racial domination. Political division based on color is entirely artificial. And when it disappears, so will the domination of one color group by another. The ANC has spent half a century fighting against racialism. When it triumphs, as it certainly must, it will not change that policy. This, then, is what the ANC is fighting. Our struggle is a truly national one. It is a struggle of the African people, inspired by our own suffering and our own experience. It is a struggle for the right to live. During my lifetime, I have dedicated my life to this struggle of the African people. I have fought against white domination, and I have fought against black domination. I have cherished the idea of a democratic and free society in which all persons will live together in harmony and with equal opportunities. It is an idea for which I hope to live for and to see realized. But my Lord, if it needs be, it is an ideal for which I am prepared to die.
Mandela was born in Transkei, South Africa on July 18, 1918. Mandela, the first of his family to attend school, attended primary school in Kono, South Africa, where he was given the Christian name Nelson. His father, Kosi Fanaskiwa, was a counselor for the king of the Thempu tribe in which Mandela grew up. Fakanskiwa died of a lung disease when Mandela was only 12. Soon after his father's death, Mandela became an assistant for the king of the tribe. The king told Mandela many stories of the wars of resistance and fights against segregation that he had faced, which significantly impacted Mandela's actions in the future. He was inspired to make his own contribution to the freedom of his people. He thought that in order to inspire change, he needed to join politics. In 1942, he joined the African National Congress, South Africa's governing political party. This put Mandela in the position to be heard by many, which is exactly what he began to do. Within the ANC, Mandela formed a small group of young Africans, and they called themselves the African National Congress Youth League. Their goal was to give peasants and people of the working class the ability to speak up and vote. For 20 years, he led nonviolent protest defiance against South Africa. Ambition and vision to inspire change put him in jail for much of his life. He spent a total of 27 years in prison for leading riots and encouraging black South Africans to fight against the oppressive government. Mandela was sentenced to life imprisonment on Robben Island, in which he would have to do lots of hard labor and very primitive conditions. He was first charged with treason for speaking out against the laws in his country. At first, Mandela was willing to use violence to overthrow the government, but in 1960, when the country declared a state of emergency because 69 protesters were killed, he changed his approach to protesting. In 1962, Mandela left South Africa and traveled to England to ask for support. When he returned, there was a police roadblock set up. Mandela was arrested and charged for leaving the country illegally and inciting workers to strike. This earned Mandela 5 years in prison. Mandela thought that there are many people who feel that it is useless and futile to continue talking about peace and non-violence against the government whose made a huge step forward for black civil rights by making South Africa one of the most democratic countries in South Africa and greatly influencing politics. He still had some regrets and things that he wished to be accomplished. He wished that people didn't see him as a superhuman who had the answers to all human problems. He said that he appreciated the gratitude that people showed him, but also wanted people to acknowledge him for being a regular human being who had limitations. Another one of Mandela's regrets was that he was not able to be a father figure for his kids, which is one of the primary reasons that he only stayed president for one term. Finally, although Mandela accomplished a lot in his lifetime, he wasn't able to provide proper shelter for lots of his people. Many black South Africans are still living in slums. Nelson Mandela lived a harsh life full of controversy and conflict. Although his life was difficult, he lived a very fulfilling life in which he was able to advance black civil rights to the point where blacks around the world gained rights. He died in Johannesburg on December 5th, 2013. He was a remarkable man with an incredible lack of bitterness towards the racist people who had him incarcerated for much of his life. He would never fight racism with racism. Overall, Mandela was one of the most influential and loved leaders of all time and will always be remembered for his contribution to advancing black civil rights across the world.
What do we say to you, Mandela, in these days, the last final moments together before you exit the public stage? Mandela, your abundant reserves of love, simplicity, honesty, service, humility, care, courage, foresight, patience, tolerance, equality, justice, continually served as a source of enormous strength to many millions of people in South Africa and the world.
Tatomkhulu means grandfather. And like all South Africans, and maybe people around the world, we are proud of his achievements and we want to make him proud. Tatomkhulu was a true leader who led by example. He was a true servant of the people. His mission in life was to make the lives of the underprivileged better.
Thina sizwe, thina sizwe.